Welcome back. Well, a massive week for former President Trump. Opening arguments in his so-called hush money trial kick off this morning, while the Supreme Court will hold a hearing on his presidential immunity claims later this week. Trump is going after Alvin Bragg on Truth Social this morning. Early this morning, he slammed Bragg as, quote, a corrupt Soros-funded district attorney who totally lost control of violent crime in New York. And in a strange twist, the man who once described himself as Trump's most dangerous enemy, jailed attorney Michael Avenatti, says he's been in contact with Trump's legal team and is willing to testify in his trial. Avenatti represented Stormy Daniels when she tried to sue Trump, remember, and was later convicted of actually defrauding Daniels. Joining me now is the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Tom, what a mess. Your reaction. What can we expect in all of this?
Well, we can expect Bragg, according to the New York Times, to relitigate the 2016 election. His whole theory is that Trump stole the election, so he's denying, all of a sudden it's okay to deny election outcomes by suggesting that by President Trump or people around him deeming a legal expense, money paid to settle a legal dispute, he committed a crime and therefore should be put in jail for violating also federal election law in 2016. Just incredible that it's being done. Obviously, he can't enforce federal election law. And as far as I'm concerned, this isn't about what Avenatti is going to say or what anyone is going to say. This is a show trial. The purpose of this is to keep the president effectively a political hostage stuck in that courtroom while President Biden is able to go around campaigning with no opposition for the next several weeks. We already saw that last week in Pennsylvania. Biden spent 3 days in Pennsylvania while his Democratic political allies and a donor to him on the bench kept Trump in that trial for no good reason. This should be in the least delayed. Obviously, it should never have proceeded anywhere as far as it's gotten thus far. But the idea that this is taking place in the middle of an election year is an abomination.
It's just incredible, Tom. I mean, look, then there's this. The Republican National Committee has filed election-related lawsuits in nearly half the states, including recent actions targeting voter roll maintenance in Michigan and in Nevada. Is this enough? What is your assessment of the ability to have a transparent election in 24?
Well, I'm glad they're following our lead because it needs to be done. We have lawsuits we just filed in Illinois to clean up the rolls. We've cleaned up 4 million names from the rolls in just a year or so. And the Justice Department refuses to enforce the law. So it's up to groups like Judicial Watch and interested parties like the Republican Party to make sure the rolls are clean. If you're going to have mass mailing of ballots, the one basic thing that needs to be done is to ensure that people are where they're supposed to be and are still eligible to vote. And so in California and in Illinois, Pennsylvania, there has to be continued cleanups of the rolls in order to reassure people that the elections are going to be run fairly.
Yeah. Tom, what else do you think the RNC needs to do at this point in that regard?
Well, I mean, they're between a rock and a hard place because a lot of these new changes to the rules they have to follow in the sense that mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting. But all those processes generally undermine free and fair elections. And I don't know if this is going to be the year to challenge it because it may be too late. But in the long run, we got to ensure voter ID and certainly ensure that the 10 million illegal aliens the president has let in aren't able to vote easily. That, to me, needs to be a priority, to preserve the right to vote to citizens only. Right now, the protections there are virtually nil because no one asks anyone to prove their citizenship to vote in federal elections.
And this two-tiered system of justice that we're seeing, I mean, look, now Trump has a gag order. And you've got Joe Biden going to all the swing states, attacking Trump, talking about abortion. Trump can't say a word.
No, and you know, let's take a step back also, Maria. It's not just about putting him in jail or harassing him through this process. They're now threatening his life. You had Benny Thompson, a leading Democrat in the House last week, say they should take away the Secret Service protection. and the bill is targeted at Trump if he's convicted. So they want to get him killed if he's convicted. Is that the new Democratic mantra here? And I hope the Supreme Court, when they're considering presidential immunity, takes a look at what the Democrats are planning to do here, which is to deny the president Secret Service protection if he's convicted and place his life at risk. How is it we can have a constitutional republic where a president is free to act if he can be prosecuted immediately upon leaving office? And frankly, once that rule goes out the window, why can't he be prosecuted while in office? Why aren't there prosecutors right now trying to jail Trump in the various states? I don't know what the legal obstacle would be based on the Justice Department's new rules for Trump.
Well, it's a good point. How do you see this playing out this year in terms of trials? I mean, now they're talking about once we get the result from the Supreme Court on potential immunity, that if they reject that claim, we could see those two trials in September, 2 months before the election, Tom.
You know, my guess is the Supreme Court and even the weaker justices like Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, are going to want to avoid interfering in the election. And they're going to want to have the courts get out of determining who the next president is by allowing Democrats to abuse their processes. So I think that's how they're going to thread the needle. I think they're going to come up with decisions that effectively put the resolution of these issues past the election. However they do it, I don't know. But does the Supreme Court want to endorse putting the former president and #1 candidate on trial a month before the election? I have a feeling a majority won't want to do that.
Yeah, here's Ted Cruz talking with me about voting and whether or not the whole plan of an open border is to get illegals to vote. Tom, watch this.
Well, and Maria, there's a unifying thread through all of this, and it is that Democrats are willing to abuse power and defy the law in order to stay in power, that their #1 concern that trumps everything else is keeping Democrats in control. People ask me all the time, why would they allow? We're now up to 11 million illegal immigrants under Joe Biden,
wow,
the worst in history. Why would they allow this invasion? And the answer is simple. They view those 11 million illegal immigrants as future Democrat voters.
Mike Huckabee, jump in here.
You know, I would disagree with the senator on one point. I don't think it's just about putting the Democrats in power. I think it's about eliminating any opposition. They're not just interested in holding power. They want to make sure nobody else gets close to it. The attack by the Democrats toward every Republican, particularly Donald Trump and everyone who follows him, is just an outrage against a whole free country where people can view or have their views and express them and then be incredibly punished for them. This is really a disgrace to America, and the Democrats own it.
Tom?
Dangerous times we're in, because if it's now the new rule that a prosecutor anywhere in the country or a Justice Department can prosecute the leading presidential candidate for reasons like interfering in the election or lying while he's running for office, Katie, bar the door. Our country is over.
Oh, my God. Tom, thank you very much for weighing in. These are very serious issues, and we will certainly keep a spotlight on it all. Thank you, Tom Fitton, joining us from Judicial Watch.